Hey, hi everyone. My name is Lynette. We're about to start our meeting, but we'll have to give 5 minutes for more people to join us. In the meantime, you can tell us where you're joining from and tell us how you've been since our last meetup. And if you're new here, feel welcomed. Yeah, we welcome new faces. So feel welcome to the community. Let us know how it goes. So we'll be starting at 5:35. Yeah. In the meantime, just chill. Okay, so I guess we'll have to start as the rest go on. And I'll be introducing you to the UIUX Nairobi community. So we meet monthly every fourth Tuesday of the month at 5:30 p.m. And so let us get to know each other. As I introduce myself, I'm Lynette. I'm a product designer based in Nairobi, Kenya, and I'm glad to be your host today. So let's go ahead and let's go to know each other. So about UIUX Nairobi, we are an online meetup for professionals in UIUX design, and we are based in Kenya. So what we basically do in this community is to network, share ideas, and improve ourselves. We hold our meetings every fourth Tuesday of every month at 5:30 p.m. East African time, and we meet virtually for now. So today's agenda, we are going to be covering a case study presentation by Vincent Kangere. Then we are going to have discussions and Q&A regarding the case study presented. So as we go on with our presentation, you can go ahead to ask questions in the chat or hold on to your questions until we have come to time to cover them after the presentation. Then we'll be having announcements on job openings and events that are occurring within the community, and we'll be finishing off at 6:30 p.m. Also to mention, we'll be having Hakim talking to us about accessibility in web design. So looking forward to that. So we'll be having two speakers today, Vincent with a case studies presentation, and Hakim, we're talking about accessibility in product design. So we'd also like you to engage with us and suggest UX topics that you'd like us to cover in our next meetups so that we can make this community more engaging for you. And as I mentioned, we'll have job and event announcements at the end of this meeting. So we have basic house rules. If you want to ask a question, please raise your hand or type it in the chat or tweet it to us at UIUX Nairobi with the hashtag UIUX Nairobi. Remember to be respectful and stay on mute until the moderator unmutes you. Also, keep your question and comment precise questions or comment short and precise, approximately 1 minute, to allow everyone to engage with us during this meetup. So we are also present on our socials. So we have a LinkedIn page. You can go ahead and follow us there. Then we have a Twitter account at UIUX Nairobi. We are currently live streaming this event on YouTube at UIUX Nairobi, and you can reach out to us via mail on uixnairobi@gmail.com. So that's it. Yeah, that's it. So we'll be going ahead to get started. At the moment, let me just. It seems like Vincent is just to join us, so I guess we'll go ahead and get started with Hakim. Yeah, Hakim, just wait a minute until you are given the right to present and unmute yourself. And in the meantime, feel free to engage with the chat and let us know what you think. How have you been doing since our last meetup? And let us know how the going has been for you.
Hey, hi Lynette. Hi
Hi.
everyone. Hi UIUX Nairobi. I'm Luma Hakim, and I'm glad to be here. I was actually in Nairobi 2 weeks ago, and I really engaged with some members in the community. And when Michael reached out, I was like, we must do this. And yeah, I'm glad to be here. Thank you very much. So should I get started?
Yeah, you feel free to get started. Let's hear what you have to say today. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I'll just take off my screen share. Yeah, so today we'll be talking about accessible design. And just really understanding what does accessible design mean in product design as a whole. So my name is Rima Hakim Mosh, and who is Hakim? Well, my names are Rima Hakim Mosh, Abdul Hakim Mosh. I usually cut it short to Hakim because it makes the introduction a bit long. But yes, I am Muslim by name and by practice. My nationality is Ugandan, and I'm 22 and 32 weeks. I love to hang around coffee shops, read books on math, design, and chill with my buddies, really. I am very inspired by Virgil Abloh because he's a man of color who, influenced lots of disciplines in design, architecture, fashion design. I'm inspired by Kanye West because of how confident he is in his thoughts and how much he believes in himself. I love Naval Ravikant because I like his ideas on wealth, happiness and life. And I'm not a fan of Elon Musk currently because I think, he's a bit radical sometimes with the things that he does. For example, now, we have to tell our parents that we're on X.com, right? And not Twitter anymore. It's a bit a difficult conversation. Well, I like to listen to music as well, Afrobeats, Spana Boy, Rema, as well as Sauti Soul sometimes, respectfully. Yeah, so this photo of me is actually one that I chose on purpose because it explains how my life is most of the time. It is a mixture of excited and afraid at the same time, but still moving because I was on a zip line in Mauritius a few months ago, and that was one of the scariest but most exciting moments of my life. With that introduction, I'd like to go into the breadth of the matter. So since we're talking about accessibility in product design, I found it necessary for us to talk about what product design is, right? So what is product design, right? So product design really has been with us from way back to 1760, at the inception of human-centered design. So as we all know, humans have been making products since millennia, since we started to make fire box as part of their product. Or baskets or hunting equipment or clothing from back cloth. We've always been making products, but what happened around 1760 was the Industrial Revolution, the first wave of the Industrial Revolution. So what happened is that people stopped making products just from a case-to-case basis or for their own livelihood, but rather they started to make products that would be globally consumed by a larger network of people. So at around the Industrial Revolution, the human took center of design. That's when we started to say, okay, if we're making chairs, how do we make it ergonomic? How do we make people? Because now we were doing that scale. There was a focus on humans, right? So with human-centered design, there was lots of figures that were kind of influential within that time. A lot of male whites, which I think there might be some correction because I believe Africans couldn't have just been sitting around. But Peter Burns, Peter all the way to Jonathan Ive, these men built furniture, art pieces, couches, lots of different products. Jonathan Ive was a huge contributor to the iPhone and was a British designer who worked very closely with Steve Jobs in the Steve Jobs era. Johnny Ive was very influential in that. And so for the longest time, these designers used to be referred to as industrial designers, particularly because they were working on physical products or products that had to be built in like big factories with thousands of employees, of workers. And that was kind of, so someone in the waiting room, I don't know whether I meet them or that, but right, that I think that's mine. So anyways, so yes, so product designers, the word product design actually originated as a result of another movement, which was the computing age, right? So humans were able to invent computers, and the invention of computers led to another wave of human-centered design, which is human-computer interaction. So human-computer interaction, that's around 1980 to date, man has been optimizing design for human and computer interaction. And that's what we do as UIUX designers. We're still creating a medium within which human beings can communicate with these complex, signals of electrons, because that's essentially what computers are. So interface design kind of took center stage then with a human-computer interaction focus. Some of the notable figures in this time were Gibson or to Don Norman. I think Don Norman is very popular in the space. Many people say he's the father of UX design, but particularly because, according to history, the first UX user experience design job was offered to Don Norman, and that was at Apple, again by Steve Jobs. Don, in his book, Design of Everyday Things, explains that he did not know what the label on his office meant. He said, "What do you mean you're an experienced designer?" And look where we are now. It's a very relevant space, and thanks Steve Jobs and his team for that. So some of the things Don Norman and Gibson were kind of pondering about were trying to define a relationship between us, the humans as actors, and the objects that we interact with, or you say, for example, human and computer. They kind of came up with this term called an affordance, which means that for us to have a relationship or a connection with these objects, our capabilities as humans need to match the properties of the object. So just to break down this physics or the very complex language, is basically what they're saying is that for us to have touch screens, glass has to be able to, first of all, be transparent so that glass can allow light and screens can be formed behind glass. Because if glass was opaque, then screens wouldn't happen, or we wouldn't be able to see through the screens. So it's basically trying to match the properties of us as human beings with, the capabilities of us with the properties of the devices that we interact with, right? And so what does this mean when it comes to accessibility? So how does this relate to accessibility? We understand that product design has been with us from millennia, and now we have this word accessibility that we want to break down today. So accessibility means a bunch of things, right? But in short, I'll give you a definition that I've kind of came up with to summarize it. So accessibility is basically the ability to make products an experience, or products or an experience to a wider group of people who otherwise wouldn't have the ability to enjoy or utilize that product or experience because of physical, mental, or cognitive disabilities. So when we talk about digital products, which we are always seeing, they're always in Figma, the four main parameters of accessibility that become paramount is mobility, literacy, vision, and hearing, right? So these are very important when it comes to accessibility of digital products. Right? Can people move? Can people understand? Can people see? Can people hear? So when it comes to accessibility, below you see an image of how different people view the same Spotify interface. So to the left is a quote unquote normal view, right? And normal people see it like that, quote unquote normal, because I believe at one time, at any point in our lives, we all have accessibility needs at some point, whether it's vision, whether it's motor, whether it's cognitive, we will have a time where we can't access experiences in a quote unquote normal way. So you kind of see that as designers, the onus is on us to understand that these disabilities exist amongst the users that we're trying to build for. So it's kind of apparent, and we need to factor these in as we design, right? It's very, actually, until I looked at the statistics that I'll be showing next, it is actually a very big section of design. And I think as a product designer, to stand out in the next 5-10 years, you have to be talking big on accessibility, and because that is where digital product design is heading, in my opinion. Right? The more people that can experience these products and experiences, the more revenues for the companies that you work for, the more stickiness, the more usability, the more users, and the happier everyone is, right? So some quick facts here. We have staggering 9% of the men in the world are colorblind, and 0.5% of women are colorblind as well. So that brings up about a number of about 711 million men who have colorblind defects, and 39.5 million women who are colorblind. Just to bring a bit of context, I drew these egg shapes down here that show the population of Uganda versus the population of colorblind women. And I think it's just 500,000 shy of the other. And I found that very staggering. So just to put it in context, imagine someday, so some big bus came and took everyone out of Uganda, right? All 40 million people, and took us out, right? So it's an empty country. What this means is that they could actually fill the whole of Uganda, like literally everyone, with the same amount of people who have a color blindness issue. So there could be a country that has accessibility issues, and that country could be ours, right? And this is how staggering these statistics are, right? But just to not to even generalize on only color blindness, World Health Organization estimates that about 1 in 7 people has a disability form, right? And if you're talking about a group of say 28, like we are on this call, that estimates that at least 4 people on this call have special accessibility needs, right? That is not focusing on the magnitude, right? But rather some form of disability. It might be a vision impairment. You see, I'm wearing glasses already. I think that is, something that we as designers, as we design products or experiences, need to factor in very, 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 very highly, because these are 1 billion people we're talking about. So now that we know about accessibility, how do we make products more accessible, right? So we know that accessibility is important. We know that it's important in product design because, humans are the center of products, but how do we make them accessible? Well, I think many smart designers on this call are already implementing these accessibility measures within their designs, right? We're talking voice to text speech, functionality. We're talking about alt text. We're talking about, typography styling, having dynamic type within the app so people can adjust it based on, their vision ability. And we're talking about translators. Of course, that's more picking into inclusivity, but really there's these measures that products have been incorporated into, their functionality to kind of cater for accessibility needs, right? So in this next section, I'll be talking about my favorite implementations of accessibility to date, and some unique ones that might not be being practiced at like a wider scale, but I think something that would be enough to inspire us to, take it as something that we need to factor in on the products that we work on, right? So how we can achieve accessible designs is really only one way, right? As a designer, empathy must be like your fourth name or your third name, if not your first name, right? Because at the center of our discipline is empathy. So what empathy is the ability to put yourself in the shoes of another person while designing an experience or a product, right? So until we truly put ourselves in the feet of others, we will not be able to design experiences that are accessible for all, right? So yeah, that's really what we need to do, right? And don't forget to add a little bit more empathy after adding empathy, right? Because unless we really put ourselves in the shoes of others, we'll never be able to design products that can be accessible by all, right? So yeah, so how are others doing it, right? So I'm going to show you how products today have been incorporating accessibility into their design and products, right? So first of all is one of my favorite, but took me the longest to understand. There's a point when I used to use Twitter, now known as X, and I used to see the alt text option on images, and I wasn't really sure what it does, because when I click it, as a person who's able to see images and read text, I found it as a kind of a redundant feature. But upon further research, I understood that alt text is actually a web accessibility guideline that allows people who have visual impairments to understand the context of images that are being viewed. So these people can't see very well and require more context about the picture that is on view. So like I said, some people use screen readers to browse through interfaces. And so when this screen reader interacts or encounters an image with alt text, it reads out the alternative text, allowing the visually impaired reader to get context of the image, right? So here would be like a group of elderly Kenyan women dressed in cultural wear, right? The second one that I looked out for, and I think I'm very anticipating highly for, is the assistive access. So assistive access is an accessibility measure that's being rolled out by Apple, rumored, but I think there's enough confirmation, because it's currently in the iOS 17 beta. If you guys have had a chance to play around with that, what basically Apple is doing is that it is creating versions of its entire interface and its native apps to allow people with cognitive disabilities, for example, people who have dyslexia or have issues understanding complex patterns of text imagery, or generally interfaces. They are creating dumbed down versions of every single interface so that users can be able to navigate the experience as the normal users would have, right? And I think this is a very boss play by Apple, because now is a time where you can actually buy your grandparent an iPhone and they will not have any frictions using the experience. Some of the cool features that they're going to be rolling out with assistive access is targeted for people who have issues speaking. So they're going to use artificial intelligence to pick clips of their voices, 15-second clips, and then use artificial intelligence to regenerate their voices. So that will help them reply to, say, while on FaceTime, instead of speaking, Apple will be able to reproduce their voice and express the message that they text into the interface. So I think this is really cool. And for accessibility, this is actually next level. But I see more platforms or more interfaces taking this direction because, like I said, now that we're in the digital age, we've been able to produce digital products. The next level is really, can these products be accessed by everyone, right? That is going to become the concept. And yeah, the last one I wanted us to look at was the wheelchair accessible vehicle. This is a feature that has been rolled out by Uber, and basically what it does is that it offers rides to people who navigate the world on wheelchairs or require special assistance at discounted prices. So this makes Uber exposed to a wider pool of users while also increasing its impact to society. And that's what these products are actually out to do. As a UX designer, you are looking, UX designer, product designer, you're looking to solve problems in the society for people who are, around you. And, that's how your product kind of gets popularity, impact, and it's very good credibility as a designer to be behind such huge accessibility measures, right? So talk about, where can we start, right? So this was like the last part of the slides that I started to work on. I was thinking, okay, we've seen how Apple does it. We've seen how Uber is doing it. We've seen how Twitter is doing it. But us as designers in East Africa, right, and Uganda and Kenya, how can we jump onto the accessibility train, right? How do we do it? So I thought about, taking down M-Pesa, right? Not taking it down, but I think M-Pesa is one of the things that was one of my best memories of being in Nairobi was how powerful M-Pesa was, right? This super app, monolith type of app that kind of solves your everyday problems, in an instant, I found very interesting. And as much as, like, as good as the product is, I was like, you know what, maybe let's build a case study around that. And I think this is my pitch to all the designers on the call. If you would like to collaborate on a case study around M-Pesa, let me know, because it's something that I think is worth doing, because we want to make M-Pesa the app for Africa, right? And so in this section, we'll dive into how we could make M-Pesa more accessible. This is a hard task, but I had a few thoughts, right, that I'm just spinning about, and you guys can let me know what you think. So one would be introduction of voice command or AI assistant, right? So we know that we're now in the AI boom, and people are doing all sorts of things with LLMs, which is large language models. People are doing all sorts of things with these APIs, and solving many problems that have been with us for the longest of time. So while I was browsing M-Pesa today, don't focus too much on the balance, but while I was browsing M-Pesa today, I realized that for people with mobility and cognitive disabilities, right, it might be, yes, the balance will change as long as this is a salary week. So the balance will improve, definitely. So we have mobility and cognitive disabilities like dyslexia. So at times, M-Pesa's interface, being the super app that it is, can be very intimidating. It can be a lot of information to process, right? So the idea here is to create a voice assistant that allows me to cut corners around the interface, right? So this makes M-Pesa more accessible to users who have mobility issues. They can't click through the journeys, they can't utilize their hands, but probably they could have a voice option that allows them to instruct the app on what to do. For example, I could be like, send money to Lynette, and probably, the smart engineers in the back have found a way to kind of bake the app's data in the background. And so it's able to be smart enough to perform commands on my behalf. I think that would be a cool provision. Also, just having text to voice application. For example, for my balance, if I have reading disabilities, or vision issues, we could have text to voice kind of function that reads my balance to me if I can't read it, right? So it's just like, how much my balance is, like, 3,000 Kenya shillings. And I thought that would be an interesting feature. And then the next one, I found I'm a bit on the fence about it, but again, I would want to let you guys know about it. It is really the Swahili translation. Like I said, I'm still fascinating about Kenya and the strength of the culture there. So today, in the morning, I switched my M-Pesa my phone, my iPhone to Swahili. Right? So when I did that, I checked a few apps, and say Spotify has Swahili version, and I checked M-Pesa and it actually did not have one. I think within the toolkit you can change what language you want your notifications to come in, but I don't think the app had an ability to have it in full Swahili. And I thought that this would be a low-hanging fruit that will increase accessibility and inclusivity of the app, right? And speaking about inclusivity, that's another big English word. These big English words conceal a lot of information, and sometimes you don't get beyond the words. But what I like to do or suggest is, like, let's break them down into, like, what do they actually mean, right? So inclusivity, just like accessibility, is basically having a wider pool of people have access to particular experiences, which otherwise they wouldn't have. For example, but inclusivity actually deals with a slightly different, different parameters. For example, while accessibility talks about, like, physical disabilities and visual impairments, cognitive impairments, things like hearing or seeing, inclusivity basically means, representation of cultures, religions, genders that otherwise might be left out within a product or provision of a service. So the Swahili translation of M-Pesa would hit on to culture inclusion, which is basically representing, I think, the mass, of the users within the app. And I think that might increase, the stickiness of the app and increase engagement. But like I said, this was a quick wildcard, and we can build this discussion further off this call. And I'll be waiting to hear if anyone wants to take this on, so we can sit down and see how we can make M-Pesa more accessible. Next up, I would like to share with you a few resources that we can utilize to achieve accessibility while designing experiences and products. So, like I said, we are all designers here, we are very dependent on resources, and there might be resources that this breakdown leaves out. But basically what I wanted to do was to share my playbook, like, what do I actually rely on? Because I wouldn't want to go on the internet and pick the resources, because, that's literally, I don't know, that didn't feel very natural to me. So things that I'm very dependent on is, first is colors.co. Colors.co was actually my first introduction to colorblind, maybe second, because the first was the book 100 Things You Need to Know About People. And, designers need to know about people. And then colors.co helped me kind of implement it in a simple way. So colors.co is basically a color palette generator. Maybe some of you are familiar with it, but an interesting feature that it had is that it helps you show how the different forms of color blindness see a particular color palette. And this is a boost when it comes to getting confidence on your color palette direction, because then you're very sure that everyone can see this. And basically the main limitation with color palette generation and color blindness is basically the contrast, right? So if you don't have a high enough contrast score, right, between AA, AAA, maybe talk about maybe AAA type of contrast, it might be hard for people with color blindness effects to tell the difference between the different colors, especially if we're using color as a differentiator, right? So using red to mean something and blue to mean something. red and maroon to mean something, it's going to be hard for people with color blindness issues to tell that these two colors are trying to represent different things. The second resource we could utilize is information is beautiful.net. So basically this again is a color wheel that shows how different colors are viewed by different cultures. Why I like this resource is because it has Africa captured, and that I don't find very much in these widely accessible resources, because maybe they'll tell us that women in general, I mean, the most liked color is blue. You'll see that on Instagram every time. Women like maybe pink, or but then it lacked a context issue. And I think as product designers, our biggest work is getting the context right. Like, we all learn from, say, Western resources. Many times we learn from how white people do approach design, and then it becomes hard to get that type of design and connect with the people that our products are trying to reach. So this particular resource helps me understand how, say, people in Africa perceive red, right? Like, what does red mean to us? For example, in China, you might look at yellow, and yellow is something that represents luxury, it represents royalty. Red in China probably represents happiness. You see it all over the streets, you see it all over festivals. But then when you come to Africa, red has a different connotation to it. And so this helps us get that context, in a relatively easy way. So then my last three resources I'd like to share is, of course, the Bible of accessibility design. That's Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. These are kind of, the one true source of, accessibility design. And if you want to get started and understand the topic, that's your first go-to resource. Other two are YouTube videos, mainly TED Talks. I love TED Talks because of, the subtle way that information is transferred. It doesn't feel like they're trying to reel it into you, but it's more or less like an experience where you kind of get aha moments along the way. So Margaret Stewart, how giant websites design for you. She's an ex-Googler, YouTuber, and Facebook product designer. And she talks about how big tech designs inclusive experiences. So it really shows you at a granular level, like, how do we design for, say, 10 million people, right? That's important to know, how to cater for all these different, people. The other one was Tony Fadell. I love Tony Fadell, the father of the iPod. And he talks about the secret to great design. So basically, this TED Talk is about how empathy is at the center of all great design. He talks about how at Apple they invented, they kind of realized that when we used to buy toys or electronics, the first thing we had to do was to charge them. You remember on Christmas when they got you a toy car, you'd always be like, oh no, now I have to charge it. Or the new robot or transformer that you've gotten, but then you first have to charge it. And so Tony Fadell and the team at Apple, when they noticed this, they made sure that iPhones, when they released, when they were released, they would come battery full, right? So that people could just open the box and use it. So there's interesting case studies in there, and I'll also recommend that very much. And Tony Fadell is a very great product designer. So that's my presentation. I remain just another internet kid. My portfolio is accessible there. I am accessible on X as well, or formerly Twitter. Instagram is where I put up, projects that excite me. And I'm also still very available over WhatsApp. I'm in the UX community group for Nairobi, so we can always chat in there. I just joined probably 2 days ago. And thank you so much for the audience. And I'll be able to take on a few questions or comments, both personal and about the. Oh yes, Lynette says, can you share your stats? Definitely.
Okay, hi, Hakim.
I can just do that right now. Yes, thank you. Yes.
Okay,
yes,
so we
Lynette.
had some questions in chat. I'm going to read them out to you. So Merimbaile has, which tool do you use to test how people with colorblind see Spotify?
Okay, great. So actually that was something that I'll just dive into my presentation. So So how I did that was actually by leveraging a plugin. So it's crazy how many plugins there is right now, and there's lots around accessibility. So the plugin that I used was Colorblind. So one direction I had was, okay, can I see the interface and can I redo it using colors.co like I showed? And I thought that would take too long, so I looked for a plugin. There's many plugins, but the one that I used was Colorblind. So you basically pick the frame that you want to check, and then it will create the variations based on the different color blindness defects.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So we also have another question from Ryan. He asked, how do you navigate company practices that prevent investment in accessibility and other design considerations? Push out the product now and implement those later is a common response from stakeholders. So basically, he's asking, how do you navigate company practices that prevent investment in accessibility and other design consideration?
Yeah. Wow, that's a very great question. I think that's actually very relevant in terms of like the context of a product designer. So unfortunately or fortunately, as a product designer or anyone in a tech team, your constant battle is to try to get a voice in the organization. Some of the things we say at Airco is that everything starts with design, right? So we stay solid on that. And we determine the direction of the product, right? So definitely stakeholders always want to ship fast. They want to go to market quick. They want to cut corners around things that might be important to the product. So as a product designer, the only thing I can advise you to do is you have to probably show these stakeholders what the impact of accessibility could be to this product, right? Or, rely on the data, rely on documentation. Those are things that stakeholders take, that's what the language that they listen to. If, for example, I'm saying, okay, there's this many color blindness effects, until I show them probably how many users are bouncing because of this particular issue, or until I rely on the data and look at the product metrics and say, okay, people have been bouncing here because we do not have, a text-to-speech option. So I think the onus is on a product designer to kind of justify. It's not going to be something, especially since the space is relatively new. That's half your job. Half your job is trying to convince people that your job is useful. At least that's the experience that you have with some employers. So the data is going to help you. Try to talk figures, right? Talk product metrics, talk revenue. Sit with those higher ups and tell them, hey guys, we're missing this much money, or users are bouncing off, and this is why, right? That's the only time they're going to listen. But if it's just maybe something you say on a stand-up or you say on a check-in call, it might not be taken to deep consideration. So yeah, the onus is on us, really. And I totally relate with you because that is a very, very common thing,
Okay, so we also have another question from Mike. He's asking, how do you test accessibility with people at AirQ?
Oh, so with accessibility at Airco, what we do is that we have certain user segments that we perform tests on, right? But again, like I said, within these product teams, it's a relatively new concept. So I think it's something that you have to keep tinkering with and try to figure out the best way to implement it. But with Airco, it's basically A/B testing and really using desk research. So what's desk research? Desk research is what is already accessible on the internet, right? So we bank with these stats and say 9% of men in the world have this issue. So let us solve for it, right? But I wouldn't advise for, so especially if you're like in a small organization or you have, smaller budgets, it might be difficult to kind of try to figure out how many people within your user base have accessibility issues, it might be hard. But what I would advise is like how we approach it is basically using estimates, right? So we're just like relying on desk research and then utilizing that to, kind of influence product. Yeah, because many times you don't have budgets directed towards it, like you mentioned. I mean, the previous question mentioned. Yeah. But like I said, it's more or less, but more than anything, it is a personal initiative, right? As a designer, you have to create the process, you have to navigate, you have to create the case for accessibility by yourself, right? Because I think that's the epitome of our profession, making the products that we build accessible to everyone.
Okay, so I think there are no more questions. So maybe give a vote of thanks, then we'll move on to the next speaker. Okay.
Yeah. So wait. So is a vote of thanks? Oh, I give a vote of thanks, or
no, like no.
Okay.
Okay. So
parting shot.
Parting shot. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, guys, and I'm very excited about Nairobi and the tech community there. I think it's very vibrant, especially compared to Kampala. I'm looking forward to, interacting with many of you. And yeah, I will be in Nairobi at the end of this week. Hopefully Sunday, inshallah, I'll be there. And yeah, I'll be ready to kind of move the needle on this. I still haven't got feedback on whether you guys want to jump into the M-Pesa case study, or if there's any cool case studies that have been done, I'll be glad to see those. Yeah, but thank you so much, UIUX Nairobi. Yeah, it's been a pleasure to talk about accessibility. I'll share this with you, Lynette. Yes, so what's the best way I can share this? Should I share the Figma file? I could do that.
Yeah, you can share the link in chat. But as regards to people collaborating with you, I think that will be much personal, but they can reach out to you on the socials. So yeah, right. So cool. That's very welcomed.
Okay, cool.
Okay,
thanks then. Guys again. Yeah.
Okay. Over to you. So we can move ahead. We have our second speaker, who is going to be Vincent. But before Vincent gets ready to present, we have opportunities to share with you for this month that we came across. So most could have been shared via our newsletter that went out today. But in case you didn't get them, so we have a Google Documents that we're going to be sharing with you. Just give me a moment. I'm trying to get to it. So we have a JUA that's hiring. Just give me a moment. Yeah. Okay, so we have several companies that are hiring. The most popular one being Synthesia, being Dalberg Nairobi Studio, that's hiring for 3 positions in design. And then we have Synthesia, that's also I'm sorry. Okay, so we also have Synthesia that's also hiring and Ajua. And then in the meantime, we have events that are occurring in the Nairobi tech space. The most senior one being Africa's Token, that's hosting an agri-tech hackathon very soon. And then we have Nairobi Garage is hosting Thomas Bond, the CEO of Shamiri Institute, for in-person after office hours events. And then we have a design exhibition that's happening in Westgate. Is it not Westgate? We have a Nairobi Creatives class, an interdisciplinary exhibition that's occurring. I'm not sure of the dates, but yeah, you'll find it in the newsletter. And then we also are inviting you to share with your network our event registration form. So I see most of you have joined the document. You can also find them there. And then we also have our newsletter that went out today. So in case you missed this, you can find it on our newsletter. So in the meantime, we'll be welcoming Vincent, who will be presenting today. Vincent will be presenting today. He's presenting a case study on, so Vincent is going to be presenting to us a case study on what? Okay, so he's studying on helping users to order from a restaurant and get meals ready, delivered at their doorstep. So in case you're ready, please let me know. Yeah, you're ready to present. So welcome, Vincent. And in the meantime, please pay attention and send your questions in chat. If we have time, we'll also have time to maybe ask questions via audio, but please send your questions in chat. Yeah, thank you. Welcome, Vincent. Yeah, take us through.
Thank you, Lynette, and for the opportunity. And so my name is Vincent. I am a UIUX designer working at Libana as a junior designer. And currently, I have almost about, I think, 1.5 years of experience so far. And so far, so great. I like the industry as a whole. I like the trade community in Kenya. And so for other guys in Kampala and the other countries who are with us right now, I would definitely recommend. Feel free to reach out to me or to the rest at any time. Okay, so for today's session, I will be presenting a case study on Katsura. It's a restaurant delivery app where specifically for restaurants where instead of having different restaurants it was meant to be for just one app. So I hope my sound is okay. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. But if you could move closer to your mic, it's better.
Okay.
We're hearing you, but
okay, no problem. Okay, sir. So for this particular project, I worked on this last year. I don't remember when exactly, but yeah. So last year I was working on my Google UX design course. So while I was learning, this is one of the case studies I presented for that particular course, and I particularly like this case study because this is where I basically my background in UX started. I learned so much while basically working on this particular project. So let me take you a bit in guys. If you have any questions, you can ask after I'm done. I can answer the questions. So for the overview, I had like basically a problem I had to solve for a specific problem, which was to help potential users get the food with the food of their own choice get delivered to their doorstep, whether they are at home, whether they are at work. So that was basically the problem that I needed to solve for. The solution was basically where users can get with food, different meals or different cuisines. If they choose of their own choosing, get delivered to wherever they want to, and the whole process was me trying to figure out how to deliver that food to their doorstep in a seamless manner. So my role in this project was use the UX research and also for the UI design. So yeah, the tools I used was Figma, and also can also use,
Vincent.
yeah.
Sorry. You're audible, but you're far. Can you get close, kidogo?
Am I okay right now?
Yes, now it's better. Thank you.
So the tools used are Figma and Miro, which is basically used for affinity mapping. And the framework I chose for this design process was the design thinking framework, which the steps as outlined here are the first one is at the empathy stage where you basically try and understand what the user needs, what the user is facing out there, and how you can try and come up with different solutions for that particular problem. And the second one is at the define stage, the ideate stage where you come up with different ideas on how you can come up with a solution, and the prototype and the test. This is where you come into like basically trying designing using the different design tools such as Figma or Adobe XD. That depends on you as a UI UX designer. Then once you have a prototype, you can test it out with the potential users or stakeholders. So yeah, so let me take you through the process. So for the first process is the first stage, which is the empathy stage. I carried out user surveys, and for this particular one, I chose to be closed-ended. I asked closed-ended questions, just try to gauge the potential users and how their past experiences with food delivery apps have been. And I recruited friends and family since I was just starting out. I wasn't exactly aware of all the different methodologies you can use to basically recruit different potential users. So maybe people you can carry out tests with or maybe ask these questions. So yeah, so for the people I was able to ask these questions, I started with surveys where I asked close-ended questions, basically yes or no questions, try and gauge their past experiences. So it's stuff like, have you used any food delivery app before? Gauge that on a yes or no, and then from then on, we can try and gather this data. And then from then on, we have the next stage was the user interviews where I asked open-ended questions. For this particular method, I prefer this one because the person you're interviewing is not exactly they have all the liberty. They can basically they give you their perspective, and they are not exactly confined to a yes or no answer. So they can give you a broad perspective where you can learn stuff that you had not even thought about while you started out, and that's basically the whole point of user research. So in the user interview stage where you ask such as their expectations when using a food delivery app, you can ask what type of cuisine they would wish to see available on the app, and their options they would like to customize their food for, and then so yeah. So once I was done with that stage, I moved on to the competitive analysis. For this, for the competitive audit, I carried out audits on different apps such as Uber Eats, KFC, and Glovo. And I used the Google to try and basically connect all that data. I downloaded the apps and through their user flows and noted down something such as the features available, the accessibility that they have made for different types of users, how the user flow is, and basically the app experience. I noted down how it was for me. Then once I had all that information, I basically defined it using a competitive audit report where I noted down some of the competitors' strengths, their weaknesses, and then using that information I can identify
Sorry,
gaps in the market.
Vincent. Sorry
Yeah,
to interrupt you once more. Your voice again. Imepotea.
Sorry, I think there's a problem with my mic. Can you hear me right now?
Yes, now better. Thank you.
So in the competitive audit reports, this is where I synthesize that data and try and come up with find their strengths, their weaknesses, and the gaps in the market, and also opportunities in the market. So as you can see, for an app like Uber Eats, they have an extensive restaurant network offering diverse cuisine. So if you have used Uber Eats, you'll see that they have different apps available that are available in, let's say, like Nairobi. You can order from a they have a variety of restaurants available. and their user interface is very friendly. Then they also have the integration with the main Uber app. That's for cars. You can just they have integrated the Uber Eats app with the Uber app. So basically, that I think that helps to grow their user base. Also for the KFC, they have exclusive promotions and discounts for the people using that app, and their menu is streamlined to what they have on offer. And also for Glovo, they have quick delivery times and a comprehensive service offering beyond food delivery. They have also services such as if you want medicine, you can search for that in there. If you want alcohol or something, so there's a whole range of products available on that app. And then so we'll move down to their weaknesses. Uber Eats, where you have Uber Eats, they have higher delivery fees. I compared that to, but at the time they had higher delivery fees compared to other apps. And for KFC, they had limited restaurant options whereby they can't exactly provide menus for other. They don't have the only meals you can find there are the meals are provided by KFC, not by other restaurants. Then for Global, the app may feel cluttered due to multiple services offered, where if you just wanted food, you'll find like a whole range of products that might be confusing for some users. And then so yeah, so that's some of the details I noted down during the competitive audit. The gaps in the market have the first ones are local restaurant app. At the time I lived in Meru, and the app I was studying were not exactly available in the area. So that was the advantage where I could come up with an app that could serve the local restaurants, and then from then on could probably if it would come to fruition, it would be able to expand to serve other restaurants. And for specialty cuisine delivery, there was a potential gap for apps that cater to niche cuisines not extensively covered by other competitors, whereby you find that one app has this meal on offer and the rest don't have, or then vice versa, the same for the other apps. Then opportunities, the market, as I had mentioned, there was that where in the location I was at, there was no app available that was providing food delivery. So that was an opportunity. The enhanced loyalty programs, some of the apps I've noticed nowadays, they have implemented that where they give you discounts and stuff like that to basically encourage you to keep ordering more and more as you engage with the app. And then so once I had that data, I came to the defined stage. In this stage, I basically synthesized all the data I had collected from the UX, from the user research, and from the competitive audits, and I grouped them into the pros of the existing apps, their cons, their behaviors of users, and their needs, such as the users prefer to customize options based on their dietary preferences. Let's say I don't exactly like protein, so I would prefer an app that would enable me to like see the ingredients, and if this specific meal has an ingredient that I don't exactly go well with, I'll be well aware, so I can maybe choose something else or something like that. So yeah, so that's one of was an opportunity there that I noticed, and for their needs, users reorder favorite items or meals they've enjoyed in the past. So that was an opportunity for me to provide basically a catalog for items that users have ordered before. We can recommend that, or the information will be available and the user can reorder that specific item. And maybe we can use that to maybe offer them a discount if they've ordered that. That would be basically that would be good for customer retention. So after affinity mapping, this is where I used all the information I've gathered to create a user persona. So for the user persona, I chose this particular person who is, her name is Sarah Brightman. Her age 30, occupation is a nurse, marital status single, location, Makutano Meru in Meru. And as you can see, she's a nurse at Meru General Hospital. So as we all know how hectic these careers can get. Our specific persona here, let's say she's come from work after a long shift. She doesn't exactly have the energy to cook herself or to go out to get some food. So the best opportunity she has to get a meal is to hop onto her phone, order a meal she'd like, and then get it delivered to her doorstep. So I used that as a persona, and I noted down her goals and frustrations, which are to eat fresh food since she's just come from work, so obviously wants fresh food that's readily available. And then some of our frustrations were lack of available food apps in the area, and experience delays and inaccurate delivery estimates, whereby you find users have been waiting for food for too long, longer than was expected. I so I use this information. So in this, we have an opportunity to provide the user a journey where the user can track their food and it's basically reduce the anxiety while waiting for their food. And then from here, I moved on to the ideate stage. In this stage, I used user flow to try and encompass the user's journey while using our app. The first step being opening the app, onboarding, and whether they want to sign up or sign in. Once they get to the home screen, they can browse the menu and select a dish, add that particular dish to the cart. They can continue browsing through the menu, or they can go straight to the checkout. So once they're on the checkout, they can add their delivery details, such as location, and for the payment, they'll have multiple options such as card and maybe mobile payment methods. And yeah, so they can also choose to pay on delivery. So if it's choose on delivery, they can go straight to the they'll be taken to the order confirmation screen, and from here they'll be able to track their meal, or they can just input their card details or their payment details and go ahead and pay. So from then on, I moved to the user journey map where, sorry for the picture quality, I tried to this is basically a screenshot of the Google form I was working with. And so the user journey map helps me to basically try and encompass the journey and come up with improvement opportunities where in this particular stage, let's say for opening the app where they get onboarded, you can try and make the onboarding process as quick and as simple as possible and also intuitive. So that would also help to keep our users instead of maybe turning them away since our onboarding process is too complicated or too hard. So yeah, and also in for the action for inputting location, try and identify opportunities to improve on that. In the action of browsing menu, I can use this to try and identify opportunities where I can make that process easier, and also the same for the checkout and also for the delivery of step. And then from then on, moved on to the sitemap. So here is where I basically try and come up with basic structure of how the app will look like, starting from the login. Then from the login, once the user gets to the home page, we'll have other options on the site on the nav bar. We'll have search. We also have cart where once the user adds an item there, they can view it from there. And also the profile. So from here, once I was done with the sitemap, I moved on to sketches. For the sketches, this is where as a UI UX designer, you basically try and bring out your ideas. There's this strategy called, I think it's called the Crazy Eight, yeah, Crazy Eight, where you can try and come up with the different concepts that you have off the top of your head and sketch them out, whether you want to do that on paper. Personally, I prefer to do that on tablet since it's easier for me to draw using in terms of like this straight. I'm not exactly good with drawing by freehand, so I just prefer doing that on the tablet. So I got down to that, noted them down, all the ideas I had down. Then, as you can see here, you have this what's supposed to be. This is what I was going to design into the homepage, where the user can see the different items available, the different dishes available, along with some information on that, the rating, so on and so forth. This is the product detail where you can, once you click on a meal, you get more information about it and maybe add it to the cart. The checkout page, this was the search page where you can search different items. These are the where the user can track their meal and also the cart. So once I had all those ideas, I moved on to this is where I got down to Figma. I started designing. I moved on to the low fidelity designs. So for this part, this is where I came up with I turned the sketches that drawn up, and I tried to come up with something that's basic that the user can potential users can go through and give them enough context to be able to test it. So once I had this down, I could conduct a usability test and get some ideas or maybe some places that I need to improve on. So for the usability test, I noted down the pain points, and once I had these pain points, I tried to come up with new ideas on how to solve that. The complicated buying process, the solution for that should be to come up with a simple navigation with consistent and recurring process. And there's a user who mentioned that, as you can see in this particular page here, I had a search button. One of them mentioned that it was a bit confusing having this down here, and I also had another page specifically for searching different meals on the platform. So that was basically very good feedback, and I worked on that, and I was able to synthesize that, and when it was very useful when I went into the high fidelity designs. So before moving on to the high fidelity designs, I came up with typography. And, I chose SF Pro Display. The reason for this was it basic for me personally. I think it worked. It worked in terms of like the hierarchy. Yeah, I could use it for different typefaces in terms of like for if I wanted to maybe for headers, I could use it for regular text and so on and so forth. So that was the reason for settling for this specific fonts. And for colors, I made sure they were accessible, and they used this as the background color. This was for text, and this was for the what's it called? The call to action buttons, and so on and so forth. So every color has to have a specific reason as to why it was chosen. So once I had noted down the colors, I moved on to components, and these are some of the basic components I used for the app. It's not as complicated as most apps you guys have probably come across. That we have the details such as the card. This was going to be obviously going to be reused a lot of times, so it had to be turned into a component. Then with the search and the nav, and yeah, so basically icons that are going to be used throughout the app and the different types of buttons that are going to be used in the app. So from here I moved on to the high fidelity designs once I had all that, and then so yeah, so these are some of the screens. I'll be going into through them later on in a few minutes, and this is going to be our homepage where the user can browse through the menu. Then the once you click on a specific product, you can view it here and view some more details about it, how much it costs, what exactly it was used as an ingredient for this particular meal, also the cards, and also so yeah. So once I had completed that stage, I made dark mode designs for the app, since most people nowadays they prefer having a dark mode option, since it don't to avoid basically, since people have a lot of issues with eye glare or whatever. So the colors chosen are compliant with the web content accessibility guidelines. I had to like go through that process of making sure each color is accessible, and they also have great contrast with the other colors used for the app. And for my final thoughts, I think I was able to solve the problem, which was get food delivered to our users or our customers, and also give them lots of options to work with. And for those users who have maybe allergies or something, I was also able to cater for them. And users who have issues with the light, I made that's where the dark mode designs comes in, where they can switch that, and then from then on they can use the app without any issues. Yeah, so let me go through the app. So go. Yeah, so first screen, once you open the app, you get the splash screen where you can see the name of the app, and the next one is the onboarding screens where basically where the background image is supposed to convey the message that the first step when you order food is we're going to make your food, we're going to deliver it to your doorstep, and then the last stage you can, once you get that get that meal delivered to your doorstep, you can go ahead and enjoy what we've made for you. Then once you're done with the onboarding screens as a new user, you move on to the excuse me, sorry for this. Yeah, supposed to start with this. Yeah, so go through the onboarding screens. Then once you're done, you can now log in to or sign up or sign into the app. Then we have different sign-in options. We have Facebook. At the time, they had not yet changed to Meta, but I'll make sure to update to that once I find the time. And then Google, and also you can log in with Apple. Then once you click login, you'll be prompted to share your location so we can be able to deliver that food to whichever location you choose. Then yeah, so the ones that brings you to the home page. So from this home page, you can browse through the different categories. You can you have different basically pizzas and everything. You have a variety. There are restaurants. This will be noted down according to what the restaurant has on offer, and then you can browse through, pick whichever meal you want. Then let's say I want to go with a beef burger, I can click on that, and I'll be able to choose how many they are basically the amount I want. That I'll be able to see the price. I'll be able to see if it's free, you can show that there. You can see how many calories that specific this specific meal has for those who are into looking after their diet and stuff like that. And also you can see the reviews here from other users that have ordered this specific meal. Now, for the ingredients, you can see all the ingredients used for this meal. You can see beef if maybe you don't exactly eat beef, or maybe you don't you get allergies from eggs. You can be able to have that information will be available to you as a user. And then you can maybe choose something else that does not have that particular ingredient that you don't want. Then accompaniments, you can select whichever one you want. And then if you want it served in a specific way, you can leave a note for the chef or for the restaurant, and note any allergies down that you might have. And then once you once you've done once each to the cart, and then you can go ahead and browse, or if you want to just order this specific meal, you can click checkout. This takes you to the checkout page where you can see that bill that you chose, and you can go ahead and add your payment details. If it's you want to go with a card, you can add your card details, the name on the card number, the expiry date, and the CCV. And yeah, also the same for delivery details. You can add your details, where you want that meal to be delivered to. And also you can also choose whether you want to pick it yourself or you want it delivered by courier. You can also choose that there. And, it also gives you a breakdown as a user. It shows you how much the meal cost and how much the delivery will cost you, whether it was free or whether it will cost you some more money, and then give you a total for like everything you have on your cart. And then once you click checkout, it takes you to the confirmation page where you can go back home or click this track order option, which shows you that your meal is on the way to get to your doorstep or whichever location you chose. And then you can, if there's maybe an issue with the location, you can go ahead and maybe contact the person who is bringing that meal to you. And then, yeah, so basically that's it for that process. For the rest of the pages, we have the search, where you can browse through recent meals you have ordered, the different categories such as breakfast and everything. Then yeah, so for the search you'll have filters. You can filter based on whether you want meals catered specifically for you, or the ones that are offer. You can also choose according to the price. You can also choose according to delivery time. Maybe let's say some meals take longer than the rest. You can also filter out such stuff. And yeah, and for dietary, you can choose whether you're vegan, whether you're vegetarian, whether you want your meals gluten free. You can choose that. And also according to the ratings, you can filter out, or you have different filter options to work with. And then for the cart here, you can view the items that you have on the cart. And if everything is okay with you, you can go ahead and check out. Or if you want to take a specific item from your cart, you can just swipe to delete, and then if you want to maybe if you change your mind, you can go ahead and do that. And then, yeah, it will be taken back to your cart. Then for previous orders, it's also available on the cart, where you can see your different orders. You can maybe see more details about it, such as which date you ordered this meal, when you ordered it, what your order was, who delivered it, and the price, how much you paid for this particular meal. Yeah, so that's it for the cart and orders. For the profile, I didn't really go into the details, but I can where you can be able to, the user will be able to switch to the dark mode option. Then yeah, so for the dark mode option, I took some inspiration from WhatsApp. The dark mode option was very user friendly, so I worked with some of their colors, and as you can see here, the contrast is okay, and they're also compliant with the web content accessibility guidelines. So basically the same user flow. And yeah, you can access the cards here, so on and so forth. And the profile, yeah, so basically that's it for my case study for the food delivery app that I worked on. Yeah, from now on, I think you can ask questions or maybe feedback that you'd like to convey.
Okay, hi, Vincent. That was a wonderful presentation. I love your design. So I'm going to welcome people. Anyone with questions? Do you have questions for Vincent? Maybe you want to discover how he did it.
Hi, Lynette. Sorry to interrupt you. So Vincent, that's a very beautiful UI. I like it. I like the fact that you have inclusivity for vegans and for people who eat meat. Also dark mode, that's dope. So I have two suggestions, I'd say suggestions.
Yeah.
The questions. The first one is when you're presenting a case study, especially if you're presenting to, let's say, recruiters or stakeholders, it's good to start with a preview of the UI of the prototype, like give us a teaser of it, and then now jump to the case study, as opposed to doing the case study and then like now the best part iko pale mwisho. Saving the best for last. At least the teaser keeps us anticipated. I'm checking.
Yeah.
It's like the appetizer. That's one. Number two, I noticed on your splash screen, I don't know if you can go to your splash screens. Is it splash? Yeah, see the text there. In terms of accessibility, the white color, the contrast between the background image and the text white, not visible to some images like this one. So what you can do is you can add black overlay on the image. From the bottom is dark, and then up the top is the opacity is 0, so that now the text is more visible. Okay.
Noted. For the rest, the images kind of worked.
Yeah, even the font here, you can increase the font kidogo because there's a lot of space. You have the real estate is big, so you can increase the font kidogo. Yeah, that's all for me, unless there's anyone who wants to ask a question. I don't think so. So back to you, Waiwa.
Okay, so thank you for your presentation, Vincent. That was great. In case you have, so it's not vote of thanks, it's the last note to give us a speaker, so you can share that. So we have Elizabeth asking a question. I'm not sure. Okay. So, Mike.
Yes, Lynette.
We have a raised hand by Elizabeth. I'm not sure if she can speak. She can unmute.
Okay, let me try to unmute her. So in the meantime, let me give Hakim. Now, Hakim, you can unmute yourself.
Yeah. Thank you, Michael. Vincent, I think this was a very brilliant presentation. I like the attention to detail. The interface work was also very amazing. And I like the way you factored in accessibility through, incorporating a dark mode, and, I think that was genius. However, I have a recommendation about that settings section. So I recognized that you had some sort of a switch between dark mode and light mode. And I think that has been kind of a debate in the space. But I think earlier today on Twitter, I saw an article that was talking about how it's actually something that can be baked into the app's functionality. So as you talk with your developers, they can be able to activate dark mode when the user's device is in dark mode. So that way the switch becomes some sort of a redundant application. So I would suggest that, the more industry tested application would be to just have a provision for a dark mode, but the switch can go, in short. Yeah. But great work.
Okay. Vincent seems to have dropped off, but you can share your insights. Elizabeth, can you unmute?
Hello.
Yeah, hi.
Okay. My question was about the time it took for him to do the case study. He mentioned he did it last year, but he didn't mention how long it took him from the beginning to the end. So yeah, I just wanted to know that, and the challenges that he might have faced in the entire, design journey from the onset to the very last bit where he did the hi-fi designs.
Okay, so since it dropped off, I'm not sure, but yeah. Anyway, any other person with questions? So I see we had a question by Violet, and she mentioned that she was new to design and she wanted a recommendation on a course she could take. Anyone in the community willing to do that? Personally, I'd recommend starting out with Google's Coursera course. Apply for financial aid and go through it. But you can also do it. Yeah, there are several scholarships that are given free training. I think we'll share them in our next newsletter, so we'll keep you up to date with that. But just be on lookout for tech opportunities that have, that are offering free training courses in UIUX. But in the meantime, get started with Google's Coursera course. There are 7 courses, so by the time you get through that, you'll have a notion of how to approach UIUX design. Yeah, Mike seems to have a question for Hakim. Mike, you can go ahead.
So I just had this question, Sai. So Hakim, you mentioned you'd want a voice to command voice something on the M-Pesa app. So my question was, how would that work when the user wants to enter their PIN? Will they speak it audibly? And now that's like a security concern, because if they say their PIN, it's known. How would that work?
Yeah, I think that's a sticky one, Mike. But I think that provision could have been a biased direction, but right now my M-Pesa, I barely have to write the code because again, that's still some bit of kind of ironic to accessibility. I basically use the Face ID, so probably that's how that feature makes sense, is that if I'm Face IDing as my security or my point of entry, then we can have voice with the rest of the interaction. But the PIN one is a good question. Yes, but yeah, that was from a direction of someone who uses Face ID. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, but I think that's a good question, because maybe some devices don't have Face ID. Maybe. Yeah.
Oh, hi, Mike. Was your question answered? Okay,
Yes.
then, so we've come to an end of our August meeting. I want to thank you all for joining us. It was great having you. And yeah, in case you want to be a speaker in the next session or want to participate, we welcome you to RSVP on our form that can be found on our socials, because I don't think I have the link right now, but yeah, just reach out to us and we will get back to you on that in case you want to be a speaker or a case study presenter. Remember to join us in our next session for September that will be held on the last Tuesday of the month. Yeah, on Tuesday. Yeah, that will be on 26th of September. So have a nice one. Have a wonderful September, and we wish you all the best. Yeah.